In today's show, we're going to talk about PowerApps responsive design. So what we're going to do is we're going to start this journey by first going through an app that I've built with all the bells and whistles. And then we're going to take what we built there and we're going to start to replicate it by building the first welcome screen so we can start talking about containers and all the fun that goes with that so we can get down the journey of building the crazy app that I'm going to demo. Should be fun. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. And today, we're going to do PowerApps responsive design. And so the idea here is that responsive design is hard, right? I'm not going to lie to you, it's hard. And there's just lots of little bitty things that go into it. So I've spent the last 2 weeks building out a fully fleshed out demo app that works in both landscape and portrait, that works on little devices, big devices, medium-sized devices. Like I built one out that does all the things for all the devices. So what I want to do is today is we're going to start with demoing that one. And part of the demo, I'm going to teach you 2 tricks you probably didn't already know. So we're going to talk about a little bit learning during the demo. And then we're going to start with a blank app and we're going to start rebuilding what I've built, right? Like instead of taking you through it, I would never show you all the settings. We're going to start with a blank app and we're going to build at least the first screen today. And once we get done with the first screen today, in the next video, we're going to build the components, and the video after that, we'll build another one of the screens, right? I mean, I'm guessing it's going to take us several hours together to build this thing, but we're going to get through it, just not in one giant video, but a few videos at a time. So cool. Well, let's just switch over to my desktop and take a look. Now we're going to start the demo here from my desktop. But Shane, you're going to show us responsive, right? So to do responsive, what I ended up doing, kind of a dodo brain, was just because the app, see, I could build it for a customer. But so as part of it, I bought an iPad, right? So I could see it because I need to be able to see these different sizes, play with it and do it. So I did, and it all works here. But trying to demo all this from the iPad or from my phone over here, which it also works on just fine, was going to be really daunting. I was not looking forward to it. So Juan from my team pointed out that there's a way that I could demo and test this, and more importantly, show it to you guys without that. So what we're going to do is first we're going to go over here, we're going to find the app. So it's called Responsive Gallery Test. And I'm going to launch it into a browser, right? So as you know, you're going to see, oh yeah, it looks terrible in a browser. Well, remember I'm in a big 4K browser, so it looks even worse, I guess. But what's interesting here is that if you now with this open, you can hit F12, and this is in Microsoft Edge. Chrome has developer tools as well, but this launches the developer tools. And one of the things about the developer tools is I can set what sizes it's in, right? So right now it's showing it to you as it would look on a iPhone 12 Pro turned sideways. Oh, you want to see it vertical? Press this little button right here to rotate it. That's what it would look like if I open it up on my iPhone. What if I want to open it on my iPad? Same thing, go down here to iPad Air. Oh, look, that's what it looks like with my iPad turned that way and that way. So this is one of the first tricks I wanted to teach you all, right? Like the developer tools for us non-developers sound scary, and there's a bunch of stuff going on over here that I don't even care about. I just wanted this ability to control the framework, the size that I was seeing without having to look on my iPhone and then my iPad and then all those type of things. Now, the first thing I didn't like as well, though, is you notice up here that we've got the purple bar, which doesn't show up on your iPad, obviously, right? So how do you get that out of the way? Remember, you can go up here to the URL and you can say ampersand and then HideNavBar equals true, right? So hopefully I just zoomed in on that so you can see it, but you just append that to the end of whatever your URL was. And now if you press enter, it will reload. You might get prompted to open if you have the PowerApps app on your machine. If you don't, you won't even see this message, but so I'm going to say cancel and say continue in browser. And so now it loads up without that bar at the top. So you can always use that anytime in your browsers. But in this case where I'm trying to test responsive and every pixel matters, it was really important for me to find that. Okay? So with that said, let's dive in a little bit and show you the app. So we're in the iPad Air dimensions. And keep in mind also you can change these, right? So if you wanted to edit and add your own custom dimensions, maybe you got a kiosk or something, you can do that, but these work for me. So what I'm going to do is first here I've got just by department. So I'll click on that button. And so here you can see that we've got, a bunch of pictures of Chewy. We've got some data here. And as we look at this, looks pretty good, pretty easy, normal. What happens if you turn your iPad? Oh, look, same thing. It's pretty standard, I think, what you'd expect. What happens if we open this same app on the phone turned up? Oh, look at that. The font size has changed. We got rid of the header. Everything is stacked vertically instead of horizontally. Pretty cool. And what if we take my phone and turn it sideways? Whoop. Oh, look, those all come back, right? So I went through the process of making this all work. Now, I don't think it's a great experience on the phone turned sideways, but it works. And this is another thing that you guys are going to find out as you start building out responsive, is that you need to determine what do you want to support and only support that, right? Like a lot of our clients, we'll build the app and it only supports, their phones vertical, or it only supports everything horizontal. Like trying to support both vertical and horizontal is double the work. So I did it in this particular app, but a lot of our customer apps, they're like, you know what? We're just going to tell everybody to lock that orientation and not worry about that too much. But just kind of something to keep in mind. And Chewy just knocked over something if you heard a loud noise. Sorry about that. Okay, so that's one screen. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So this one, also pretty straightforward. All I did here was I added some shading. I got rid of the pictures. And of course, search works, right? So if we start searching for Chewy, search works. Turn this one sideways. It's just bigger view. Nothing too exciting there, right? But this third one's a little more interesting. So with this one, if we say edit data, and so right now we're on the phone sideways. Let's put it on the iPad sideways. Turn the iPad back this way. So edit data here. Okay, so this looks very similar to that first screen I showed you. But notice here we added the pencil. And so when I do the pencil, let's click on this third one here. What happens is not only did this take over the space, but the gallery got narrower, I think it's a word. And so look, instead of a 4-column, it went to a 3-column. So email addresses just kind of dropped to this next line down here by themselves. Kind of interesting little go there. Go to a different person, same type of thing, right? So we're trying to make the edit experience work. Now, what happens if you switch this to vertical? I don't know. All right. So if you switch to vertical, so when we're vertical on the iPad, we have all the columns. You go to edit, we kind of shrink things down, right? The fonts are still good, but we made this take up the appropriate amount of space. All right. And then now what if we go to the phone? Well, the phone sideways. All right, that looks like we want. Notice these do scroll, so perfect. And what if we turn the phone horizontally or vertically? Then what we're doing is we're actually just taking up, right? So there wasn't enough room to show them side by side on the phone. So the menu takes over the space. So there you go. That is what we're going to work over building. Right? It's going to take us several videos to do it. Don't get in a rush. But, and like I said, it probably took me 2 weeks of fiddling a little here, a little there to get all of this working. And actually, when I was demoing there, I saw another little bug that I'll go fix. I didn't point it out to you because I didn't want you to know I messed up, but I saw one. But there you go. So this is one way to do it, right? So we use the developer tools. And so by using the developer tools, we can change the sizes, which really helps us facilitate seeing this. So you don't have to buy an iPad like I did, because I just needed to see it to work out all the problems. So there you go. All right. So let's close this up, right? We're good here. We'll leave this open. Maybe I want to show you something I don't think we do. But really what we're going to do is we're going to build this screen today, right? So nothing too much, but get in, kind of get our feet wet, pretty straightforward. So let's go back over here. To get started, we're going to create, and then a blank app, blank canvas app. We'll say create here. We'll give it a name. We'll call this responsive video. And we're going to choose a phone form factor, right? So I think there's pros and cons of different ones. For me, I built from the phone form factor because my client's original version that I was taking to make responsive was the phone form factor. But I want to say, I would safely say you can start with either one. And if you were really, whichever was your primary, where your base point was is where I would start, right? So like if you're like, most of the time this is really about desktops. And so big and wide is really what we're always thinking about. I'd probably start with a tablet. But if you're thinking tall and skinny is one of your main things, like I was with this one, then start with a phone, but up to you there. And while this creates, I also want to point out that if you want to download the app that we just demoed, then you can go to training.poweraapps911.com, and I have a YouTube library out there. And if you subscribe out there, and it does cost, right? It's cost a couple of dollars, easy for me to say. But out there, you can download this video. You can download the full working app that we just demoed. And I even set that one up with a hard-coded data source. So then that way you can just run it like as is. You don't have to worry about recreating a SharePoint list or any type of backend. That app is fully functional and compartmentalized. So here we are. We got a blank screen. Now the first thing you want to do, well, really the first thing you want to do is go up here and say File, and then say Save in the bottom right under my face, right? Remember, always save an app when you first start it. If you don't, you could lose your work, and then it's really frustrating. I've done it a lot. All right. So now the first thing I want you to do is I want you to click on Settings. And so under Display here, what you're going to do is you need to turn off the Scale to Fit, right? This is this first step into making responsive work is you turn off Scale to Fit. So that is what's going to let you control all the scaling, which is what you want to do, which is all the work that we're about to undertake. So you'll turn this off. Now, the other thing that you're going to want to think about is the lock orientation. As I mentioned earlier, if you only want to do one, like so either talls or wides, that is going to be half the work for you. So I like the idea. If you can get away with only doing half the work, then please do half the work. But in this case, we're going to leave lock orientation off. So this is what's going to let people turn it. Doop, 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 doop. It's whichever they want and see what they want. Okay? So there you go. So that gets our display settings right. Now that we've got our display settings right, what we want to do is we need to containerize the screen, right? These layout containers are going to be the key. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over here to the plus. The only way to use containers is to use the little plus symbol over here on the left. And then under layout, if we look, there is going to be two types of containers, or there's three. So there's horizontal. And so what happens in a horizontal container, if you put something in there, things just drop in sideways. Or vertical, you put things in, they go boom, 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 right up and down. So that is what you're going to choose. And so what we want to do here, and this is almost every time that you start a new screen in a responsive layout, you're going to start with a vertical container. So you're going to put this vertical container in here. Now you're tempted just to do the normal PowerAppsy thing and stretch it all out. That works, but it doesn't. What you're going to now need to do is you're going to click on it. You're going to want to set a few things. So the first one you're going to do is set the height, because height comes first. And so you don't want this to be 1136 because, you know, the heights get different, right? So what I do is I want this to be parent.height. So whatever the screen size, whatever screen real estate it has, whether it's on your iPhone, your iPad, or your desktop PC, whatever amount of space it has, then let the height be that. So that'll make this container take up the whole height of the screen. Then as you can imagine, we probably want to do the exact same thing for width. So we're going to say, hey, width, you are parent.width. Now, if you're thinking, Shane, like how does, I've heard of some other height and width for the app settings. Yeah, so if you go up here to the app object itself, there is minimum screen height and minimum screen width. I am not going to set those. You can, but if you set those, so for say you wanted to build the app and if you didn't want it to ever shrink down below a certain size, like maybe you didn't want it to go lower than an iPad, you could set the minimum to the iPad dimensions. We're not going to do that today, but those things are there, and it's another layer of complexity. Whereas leaving these default settings basically is saying, hey, it can get as small as an iPhone. I think an iPhone SE, right? It's pretty small. So that's what I've been building from, but you're welcome to change those. Okay, so now we've got this container. It is configured to take the height and the width. And then also just make sure, right, the X and the Y in this case should both be 0. I did achieve that by dragging the control, but make sure you got it in the corner. But so now this container takes up the whole screen. So now you can start to build within this container. And so the first thing I had in my last one there was an image, right? So let's go over here to insert and then a media and an image. And so you notice it just kind of drops in that first spot. And if we were to take and drop in a label real quick, right? Because it's a vertical container, it's just going to stack everything up vertically. So we're going to have to massage that a little bit. It's still not exactly what we want, but you're getting the idea that a vertical container stacks things vertically. So let's go back to the image. Now the first thing I need to do is get an image in there. So let's add an image file. And I think if we look under my logos here, and we'll just grab this one, who cares? So one of our little company logos, right? Now you also notice it's left justified. I can't drag this over. Right, move this, and it's telling me, move this control using the tree view or with the arrow keys. Well, I don't even think the arrow keys are going to move it. What it really is saying is, hey, I'm locked in a container, and I'm doing what the container says. So with the image selected, if you look over here on the right, you're going to see that the width is 320, right? So that's the width of this thing. All right, who cares? And a line in the container is set by the container, and it is currently set to left justified or start. So if I change this, it would go to the middle or to the right or stretch and take up the whole thing, right? So that's the 4 settings that are here. Now, it was already set to, set by a container. So what this is really telling me that is if I go over to the left and click on the container itself, look, it has default settings. So if I say, hey, I want everything in here to be aligned in the center, then look, everything moved over to the center. So instead of changing each control, one of the advantages of containers is that its children inherit a bunch of things. So setting it as the parent gives you the ability to change it once and have it affect the rest. Now, that's not to say that at some point you might want to break away from that. Maybe you don't want them all to be the same. But assuming you want them all to be the same, that's how you're going to go after that. Okay, so now he's all set there. Great. So then here we had a label, because we already put that in here. All right, so there's my label. And so in here, let's just put all the pieces in. So we got a label, right? We had three labels and 3 buttons, which was kind of the next set, right? So we had a label, then we're going to put a button in here. Oh, we'll just do button, label, button, label, button, right? And so if you remember, like if we're looking, right, we had that. We had this, we had a label, button, label, button, label, button, and then this footer with a bunch of stuff. It has a toggle for turning on my debugs, and then a date, and then the version number. All right. So these hopefully all made sense. So how do we do that bottom piece, right? Well, so what you're going to do with the bottom piece is we actually down there, we need another container. And what you're going to see over the course of this set of videos is that we're going to do containers inside of containers inside of containers inside of containers. Like that becomes very normal the more complicated you get. So today we're just going to go one level. But we're going to just go back over here to the plus. Now, what I want you to do, right, is hit the plus and then you go over here. And this time we want to use a horizontal container, right? Because we want to have one horizontal row have those 3 elements, right? The toggle and button, or toggle, label, label. So we're going to insert a horizontal container. And look, now it took up that space. And so then now we'll go back to the tree view. All right, we're on that container. And so then now we can insert those pieces, right? So what do we got? We got an input of a toggle. There's a toggle. And then we want a label and then a label. Now you notice right away that the label went off the screen. Like this is not right. But we've got all the pieces on the screen. So we want to kind of start massaging these back. Now, the first thing you might wonder is like, why is this one way over here? This one's here. Like, let's fix that before I get lost. So the reason for that is that this container, while it should be set to height. Oh, so it looks like it has a height. Oh, we'll have to talk about that in a second. I'll skip that. But its width is set to 500 here, but if you look on the right, and this is where it can get a little confusing, right? Because I'm used to looking there for my width, but because it's inside of a container, and it is currently set to align in container and then the stretch, it is automatically following its parent. So even though that doesn't say parent.width there, all right, that says 500, this right here for the minimum width, if I can get my cursor to find it, says 250, align, but the line and container right now, because it says stretch, that is the overriding thing. That is what's taking effect. So the container is set to that. Now, if you look inside the container then, if we click on our toggle, so its width is just set to, looks like 154, all right? This one's width is set to 560. Oh, so that's too big. So what we could do is just say, you know what? I want to set your width here to be like 50. Oh, that's probably too small. Set to be 100. So that brings that. And then look, this guy, right? Because in a horizontal container, they just stack side by side by side horizontally. And so then this one, same type of thing. We could just set it down to 100. And now everyone stays. But that's not really what I wanted here, right? What I really want is I kind of want this and this guy to share whatever horizontal space there is. So instead of saying a hard-coded width, we're going to hit this little thing here called flexible width. Flexible width says take as much space as available. Now, when I do this, so it set the minimum width back to 560. That's too big. We're going to change this back to 100. There you go. So then what's happening is, look, this control is taking 154. This control is taking 100. And so then this control is just taking whatever is left over between 150 plus 100, so it's 254. And then it's subtracting from the width, and whatever is available width-wise, it consumes the rest of the space. So that's giving it a dynamic property. Now the trick here, though, is I want this text right here, I want this one to also do it. So if you go over here and set this one also to be flexible width, now we're going to change this back to 100. But look, now they both are sharing that space. Because if you look right above or right under flexible width, it says fill portions 1 of 2. So this guy is taking half the space that is available, and this guy's taking half the space. But this guy got his hard-coded 154 first. Okay? So that's what you could do here. And if you wanted this guy to get a third as well, all you do is come over here, set flexible width. Notice it's automatically incremented 1 of 3. And then look, so now he gets a third, he gets a third, and he gets a third. Oh, you know what? You want this one to have 2/3? Or you want this one to have more? All right, if you change this to say 2, what it's going to do is it's going to change the fill portions. So now there's 4 portions, right? This guy has 1, this one has 2, this one has 3. Or sorry, this one has 1, this one has 2, this one has 1. 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4, but he has 2 of the 4. He has 1 of the 4. He has 1 of the 4. So you can do some funky stuff with that. Okay, so we're going to come back to all this. Let's just set him to 1 of 4 or 1 of 3 now, right? So we change him back to 1. Now it's 1 of 3. So those 3 are good for now. And then I think if we remember in there, like today, all I did here was I put in a nice little today. Oh, but not in quotes, Shane. Do that and do that. There you go. And then over here, I hard coded. I wanted this to say V1. Now you might notice that like this alignment is off. Well, from the set by container, he's set to align at the top. We want to align in the center. So I'm going to click on container 2 and say, hey, I want you to align vertically all of these. All right, so now they're in the middle. Well, that's not exactly what I wanted, but it's better. And so why is this weird, right? Because this space is too tall. I don't need this thing to be this tall. I want this to be a lot shorter. So how tall are you? You're 70. All right. So we're going to tell this container that instead, if you look right now, his height is set to flexible height. He is taking up a big old chunk automatically. We don't want that. I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to say, hey, I want your height just to be 70, right? Because we just want him to be a little tiny guy at the bottom. But how do we push him down to the bottom? Well, what I really then need is somebody to take up the rest. So if we click on these guys, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click on all of these. And now I'm going to say, hey, you guys, I want all 6 of these things to be flexible height. So now what happens, right? This guy got his 320-ish, or his 320 pixels. This guy, right, this container got his 70 pixels, so that's 390. Whatever is left over, these 6 controls are all taking 1/6 of that, right? Because their fill portions is 1 of 6. Now they all have a minimum height of 70, which I think is too big. I think that'll cause us problems, but we'll wait until it causes a problem to fix it. But there you go. So all of those are done. Now, next to my list, though, would be, hey, this thing, right? I want this text in the middle, but I've already told the container to align middle, so the control is aligned. So what do I need to do? You need to select all 3 of these text inputs, I don't know, whatever they are. Select all 3 of those, and it's just the regular text alignment that we've always used with labels. So now all 3 are in the center, like you'd expect. The same if we go back down here, this V1, right? I want this V1 to be right justified. So that's just my normal text alignment. Push him over there. Okay? So that is giving us a lot of what we want to do here, right? We've got this, we got some text, we got button, text, button, text, button, and this. All right, so that looks good. Now, if we want to preview this without going through all the hoops we jumped earlier, one of the things you can do is, so if you hit play here, you will see that now the app is responsive, right? So now if I kind of do this, and so if I wanted to see what does it do if I kind of shrink it up or if I pull it wide, all right, it doesn't do anything exciting. but you have that ability to control this. And this will be more helpful in a little bit when we go to do our real testing. Now, but what I do want to do, because I feel like this is pretty good for today. Actually, it's not, I don't like the way that this is sharing all the width, right? Because this thing keeps, right, the off is way too separated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one and I'm going to turn off its flexible width and leave him hard coded like that. So there you go. So now the date is here. This is here. All right. That feels a little better. And we're going to use that toggle a little bit later for turning on and off a debugger. Actually, that's going to be the next video. All right. So that all feels about right. Let's test it. So let's say file, let's save this. And now to do my full testing, I am going to go ahead and publish this because I want to go and turn it, right? I want to see what happens if we got to go to the different sizes. So this was our original one. So we'll just go here. We'll open up another browser. We'll say make. Hopefully our app will show up. You never know with PowerApps. So it's responsive video. Yay. We're going to click on that. We're going to go back up here. We're going to say and HideNavBar equals true. Hit enter again. Perfect. And now we're going to hit F12. All right. So that's what it would look like on an iPhone. Perfect. What if we rotate the iPhone? Oh, so this was a problem that I knew was here that I wanted you to see happen. Notice that the bottom of this stuff is all cut off. Okay. Why did this happen? Because even though we said, hey, this gets its 321st, this gets its 72nd, and then this guy's have to split up whatever space is left over. If you remember, oh, nope, over here, what was one of the things that I warned us about? Right, I told you guys to wait until I saw the problem. Oh, I hate when this thing does this. Is if you look, all of these have a minimum height of 70. Those 70s were too big. I don't need them to have that minimum height, right? Like that's just too much. Or maybe maybe I need the text too, but I don't need the buttons too. So I can just go in here, select the 3 buttons and say, hey, your minimum height instead of 70s are 40s. Okay. Doesn't change a thing you see here, but now we're going to take this, we're going to increment this to V2. Oh, do that. And now we're going to save and publish again, save and then publish. Publish. I hate that you have to press publish twice. And so now you go back over here. Now we're going to refresh this. Now we got that silly prompt again. We can just cancel straight out of that thing. We'll say continue in the browser. And look, so now because I said the buttons could be 40 as their minimum, now everything's spaced out. Now this row, this bottom row had enough to do it 70, right? So 320, 70, and then these guys are sharing whatever's left. And if we change this to, let's just change this over to the iPad. Looks good. And then if we change the iPad again. So there you go. So we have a home screen. And I think we've done enough for today, right? That was a lot. Now, the key here is that, now that you've kind of seen this first foray into this, we're going to go deeper. So in the next video, what I want to do is we're going to dive in and we're going to make the headers, right? So if you noticed over in this one, like if we go to all of these screens, we had this header up here. So it is dynamic. The other thing that I didn't show you in this one, if we turn on debugging mode, so I'm going to click the button down here bottom left. And so now let's go here to my department. I built a little debugger screen that this is going to help you, right? Like one of my consultants, this was like the aha moment for him when I showed him how to put this data on the screen. So I'm going to show you guys how to put the data on the screen. And by having the ability to toggle it on or off in play mode, allowed him to test it with it on or with it off, because that's what the customer is going to see. But if he's having a problem, turn it on real quick so he can see what's going on. So that way it's not always in their face, but it's there. And once you go live, like you would just get rid of this button altogether and never think about it again. All right. So that's enough for one day. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you've got questions, comments, any of that, leave them below. Remember, if you want to download this, go to training.powerapps.com, training.powerapps911.com. Oh, I don't need my own company URL. And over there, you can sign up for the YouTube curated library. You can download this and all the other apps. Remember, this one is in there fully working along with the one that we just built together. But yeah, I think with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Hey, me again. Before you go, click on the subscribe button, right? Join the list of 100,000 plus people that have subscribed already. Or if you need any help, right? Check us out at PowerApps 911. We do big projects, little projects, we do training, we do everything, and we can help you. Or if you want to see more videos, you probably do, then just click on the playlist above. Cool? Thanks, and have a great day.